She arrived at work on a broken bicycle while her coworkers pulled up in luxury cars. They mocked her thrift store clothes and made her sit alone at lunch. But when the lawyers walked into the office with a $5.8 billion inheritance letter, everyone who laughed at her went silent. This is her story. Kendra Holmes had learned to make herself small. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., she would wake up in the tiny apartment she shared with her grandmother, Ruby, dress in one of her 3 rotating outfits, and begin the 2-hour commute to Meridian Global Corporation. The bus ride took 45 minutes, followed by a 15-minute walk, and if she was lucky, she'd arrive with just enough time to grab water from the fountain before settling into her cramped desk in the corner of the administrative department. At 26 years old, Kendra was a junior administrative assistant, a title that sounded more important than it actually was. She organized files, scheduled meetings for executives who never learned her name, and fixed coffee machines when they broke. Her desk was positioned in the darkest corner of the office floor, tucked behind a filing cabinet where most people forgot she even existed. She didn't mind the invisibility most days. It was the mockery that cut deeper than she'd ever admit. Preston Hartford noticed everything about Kendra, but only because he enjoyed tearing people down. As senior account manager, Preston drove a midnight blue Porsche that he parked in the premium spot right by the entrance. His suits probably cost more than Kendra made in 3 months, and he made sure everyone knew it. He had perfected the art of the casual insult, the kind that sounded almost like a joke but landed like a punch. "Kendra, did you ride your bicycle through a time machine? I swear that thing is from 1955, Preston announced loudly one Tuesday morning as Kendra locked her rusty bike to the rack outside. Several coworkers gathering near the entrance laughed. Kendra kept her head down and walked past them, her cheeks burning. Sienna Beaumont was worse in some ways because her cruelty came wrapped in a smile. As marketing director, Sienna had cultivated an Instagram following of over 2 million people who watched her daily corporate lifestyle content. She would pan her phone camera across the office, making commentary about professional fashion do's and don'ts, and somehow Kendra always ended up as the don't. The videos never showed Kendra's face, just her worn shoes or her outdated blazer, but everyone in the office knew exactly who Sienna was mocking. Then there was Darius Mitchell, and his silence hurt in a different way. Darius was a successful black executive, vice president of operations, and someone Kendra had once hoped might understand her struggles. Instead, Darius pretended she didn't exist. In meetings, he would look right through her. In the hallways, he'd turn the other way. Kendra understood why he did it. Darius had fought hard to earn respect in a predominantly white corporate environment, and he saw her as a liability, a reminder of poverty that he desperately wanted to distance himself from. The worst part wasn't the mockery itself. It was how invisible the cruelty remained to everyone who mattered. When Kendra had quietly mentioned to Caroline Frost in HR that she felt uncomfortable with Preston's comments, Caroline had smiled tightly and said, "Preston is just joking around. Maybe try having a thicker skin." When Sienna's videos made Kendra recognizable even to people outside the company, and a stranger at the grocery store had laughed and said, "Hey, aren't you that girl from the Office Fails video?" Kendra realized that no one was coming to help her. She lived for her grandmother, Ruby, who had raised her since she was 8 years old after Kendra's mother, Diane, died. Ruby worked as a hospital janitor until her knees gave out, and now she survived on a small pension and Kendra's contributions. Most of Kendra's paycheck went toward Ruby's medications for diabetes and high blood pressure. The pills cost more than their rent some months. Kendra knew almost nothing about her mother. Ruby would get a faraway look in her eyes whenever Kendra asked questions, and she'd say things like, "Your mama loved you more than life itself," or "She sacrificed everything for you, baby girl." But the details remained fuzzy. Kendra had one photograph of her mother, a beautiful woman with kind eyes, standing in front of a corporate building wearing an elegant dress. There was a man in the background, but his face was blurred and obscured. Kendra used to stare at that photo for hours as a child, inventing stories about who her mother had been. The breaking point came on a Wednesday in October. The company announced its annual Corporate Excellence Gala, a black tie fundraiser where employees were strongly encouraged to attend. The ticket price was $300. For Preston and Sienna, that was the cost of brunch. For Kendra, it was 2 weeks of groceries and her grandmother's medication. "I won't be able to attend," Kendra said quietly during the team meeting where attendance was being discussed. Preston's eyes lit up with malicious glee. "Wait, everyone stop. Kendra can't afford the gala ticket." He said it loudly enough that conversations at nearby desks halted. "Should we start a GoFundMe? Maybe a bake sale?" The conference room erupted in laughter. Sienna was already pulling out her phone, probably to document this moment for her followers. Even their manager, a middle-aged white man named Gerald, chuckled uncomfortably. Kendra felt something crack inside her chest. She excused herself calmly, walked to the women's bathroom, locked herself in a stall, and cried silently for 15 minutes. She had learned long ago how to cry without making sound, but something shifted in Kendra after that day. Maybe it was exhaustion or maybe it was defiance, but she decided that even if she couldn't control how people treated her, she could control who she was. She threw herself into her work with renewed intensity. Kendra had always been detail-oriented, but now she became obsessive. She noticed patterns in financial reports that others missed. She caught discrepancies in account reconciliations that had been overlooked for months. 2 weeks after the gala incident, Kendra discovered something enormous. While organizing quarterly financial reports, she noticed that numbers didn't match across departments. Someone had been duplicating expense claims, essentially embezzling money through a complex scheme that had gone undetected for over a year. The amount was staggering, nearly $2 million. Kendra documented everything meticulously and brought it to her direct supervisor, who brought it to Preston as the senior account manager. Preston looked at her work for all of 3 minutes before announcing in the next executive meeting that he had discovered a major financial discrepancy that could have bankrupted the company. He was celebrated as a hero. Kendra wasn't mentioned once. When she tried to speak up to say that she had actually found the error, her supervisor pulled her aside and said, "Kendra, Preston is senior management. Don't make waves. Be grateful you have a job." Around this same time, a new intern started at Meridian Global. Her name was Jenny Chen, a nervous 22-year-old whose parents had immigrated from Taiwan and who spoke with a slight accent that she tried desperately to hide. Preston and Sienna circled her like sharks from day one. "Can you even read English?" Preston had asked loudly when Jenny stumbled over a word during her introduction. Jenny lasted 3 days before Kendra found her crying in the break room during lunch. The young woman was hunched over her phone, mascara running down her face, looking at texts from her mother asking how the new job was going. Kendra sat down beside her without saying anything for a moment. Then quietly she said, "They're cruel to you because they're empty inside. It's not about you." Jenny looked up with red eyes. "How do you deal with it?" "Honestly? Most days I don't," Kendra admitted. "But I remember that their opinion of me doesn't define my worth." Over the next few weeks, Kendra took Jenny under her wing. She mentored her after hours, taught her the company systems, helped her navigate office politics. When Kendra noticed that Jenny was wearing the same outfit repeatedly because she couldn't afford professional clothes on an intern's salary, Kendra took $200 from her emergency savings and took Jenny to a thrift store. They spent a Saturday afternoon finding blazers and slacks that made Jenny feel confident. "Why are you helping me?" Jenny asked as they ate cheap tacos afterward. "You barely know me, and I know you can't afford this." Kendra stirred her drink thoughtfully. "Because I know what it's like to feel invisible. No one should feel that way, and maybe if I can make it even a little bit easier for you, then all of this means something." The company crisis began on a Monday in November. Harold Sinclair, the 78-year-old founder and CEO of Meridian Global Corporation, called an emergency all-hands meeting. The elderly billionaire looked frail as he stood at the podium, his hands shaking slightly. "I'm stepping down effective immediately due to health concerns," he announced, his voice barely above a whisper. "The board is evaluating offers for acquisition." Without proper leadership transition, this company will likely be sold and liquidated within 6 months. The office descended into chaos. Jobs were at risk. Stock prices plummeted. People who had mocked Kendra for being poor suddenly understood what financial insecurity actually felt like. 3 days later, everything changed. Two lawyers in expensive suits arrived at Meridian Global's reception desk at exactly 9 a.m. on Thursday. They wore expressions of absolute professional neutrality and carried leather briefcases that probably cost more than Kendra's yearly salary. "We're looking for Kendra Holmes," the taller lawyer said to the receptionist. The receptionist looked confused. "Kendra? The admin assistant?" "Yes." Word spread through the office like wildfire. Preston appeared from his office, grinning. "The lawyers are here for the poor girl." "What did you do, Kendra? Steal office supplies?" People laughed. The lawyer turned to Preston with an icy stare. "We represent the estate of Diane Sinclair Holmes and the Sinclair Family Trust. This is a private legal matter. Please step aside." The name Sinclair made several executives freeze. That was Harold Sinclair's last name. But who was Diane Sinclair Holmes? Kendra was escorted to the executive conference room on the 47th floor, a place she had only entered to deliver coffee or clean up after meetings. Now she sat at the massive mahogany table while two lawyers sat across from her and slid a folder toward her. "Miss Holmes, what we're about to tell you will be shocking," the female lawyer began gently. "Your mother was Diane Sinclair, the only daughter of Harold Sinclair." Kendra's world tilted. "That's impossible. My mother's name was Diane Holmes. She worked in business, but she wasn't—" "She changed her name after she was disowned," the male lawyer explained. 27 years ago, Diane Sinclair fell in love with a man named Marcus Holmes, an artist from a working-class background. Harold Sinclair forbade the relationship. When Diane became pregnant with you, Harold gave her an ultimatum: the family fortune or her child. Kendra felt like she couldn't breathe. The female lawyer continued, "Your mother chose you. Harold disowned her completely. She worked multiple jobs to raise you, refusing to ask Harold for help even when she became ill. She died when you were 8 from complications related to exhaustion and an undiagnosed heart condition. Harold spent 18 years trying to find you. He finally located you 6 months ago." "He knew I was here?" "Working here," Kendra whispered. "Yes, he watched you from a distance. He saw you catch the embezzlement scheme that Preston Hartford took credit for. He saw you help Jenny Chen. He watched you endure mockery and cruelty without complaint. He read every report you filed, every memo you wrote. He was preparing to reveal himself to you, but his cancer progressed faster than anyone expected." The lawyers opened the folder. Inside were photographs Kendra had never seen. Her mother as a child with Harold, laughing at birthday parties, graduating from college, looking happy and loved. There were pictures of her mother pregnant, glowing with joy despite being cut off from her family. And there was a letter in shaky handwriting dated 3 weeks ago. Through tears, Kendra read Harold's words. "My dearest Kendra, I failed your mother in every way that mattered. I let pride and prejudice destroy my relationship with the only child I ever had. I've watched you for these past months, and I see Diane in everything you do. Your kindness, your intelligence, your strength. You are the leader this company needs. You are the daughter I never deserved. I'm sorry I failed both of you. Please forgive an old fool, and please don't fail yourself the way I failed your mother." The lawyers explained the inheritance: $5.8 billion in assets, 68% controlling stake in Meridian Global Corporation, real estate holdings worth over $1 billion, and complete authority to run the company as she saw fit. Kendra sat in stunned silence for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Her entire life had been a lie. Her mother hadn't been just a struggling businesswoman. She had been an heiress who gave up everything for love and for her daughter. And the grandfather Kendra never knew existed had been watching her clean conference rooms and endure humiliation in his own company. The lawyers called an emergency company-wide meeting for that afternoon. Every employee of Meridian Global crowded into the main auditorium. Rumors had been flying all day. Some people thought the company was being sold, others thought there would be mass layoffs. Kendra walked to the front of the room and the whispers began immediately. Why was the poor admin girl on stage? Preston was in the front row, smirking. Sienna had her phone out, probably ready to document whatever humiliation was about to unfold. The lead lawyer stepped to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to announce that Harold Sinclair passed away 2 weeks ago. His will has been executed, and his estate has been transferred to his sole heir and granddaughter, Miss Kendra Holmes. Effective immediately, Miss Holmes owns 68% of this company and assumes the role of CEO of Meridian Global Corporation. The silence was deafening. Then the room exploded into chaos. People shouted questions. Preston's face turned bright red, then white. Sienna dropped her phone. Darius looked like he might pass out. Kendra stood at the microphone, her heart pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. She thought about her mother who had given up billions for love. She thought about Ruby, who had raised her on pennies and prayers. She thought about every time Preston had mocked her bicycle, every video Sienna had posted, every time Darius had pretended she didn't exist. She spoke quietly, but her voice carried through the sound system. Preston Hartford, you're fired. Security will escort you out immediately. Your severance package is $0 due to documented workplace harassment and taking credit for work you didn't do. Preston stood up, sputtering. You can't. I can, and I did. Sienna Beaumont, you're also fired. Your social media posts constitute defamation and the creation of a hostile work environment. Caroline Frost, you failed in your duty as HR director to protect employees. You're terminated as well. Kendra turned to Darius, who was sitting very still. Darius Mitchell, you're demoted to associate director. You had the power and position to stop the harassment I and others endured, and you chose silence. You chose to protect yourself instead of doing what was right. Then her voice softened. Jenny Chen, you're promoted to junior manager with a salary of $85,000 annually. You've shown more integrity in 2 months than some people show in a lifetime. Jenny burst into tears. Kendra continued, effective immediately, this company will implement mandatory bias training, an anonymous harassment reporting system, and a scholarship program for employees from low-income backgrounds. We will match employee donations to medical charities dollar for dollar, and I want to be clear, I will not tolerate cruelty in this workplace, not to anyone, for any reason. 6 months later, Meridian Global Corporation's stock price had reached an all-time high. Under Kendra's leadership, the company had become known not just for profitability, but for ethical business practices and employee satisfaction. Fortune magazine ran a cover story about the youngest black female billionaire CEO in America. But Kendra still took the bus sometimes, by choice now rather than necessity. Ruby lived in a beautiful apartment with around-the-clock medical care, and she cried happy tears every time Kendra visited. The Diane Sinclair Holmes Foundation had been established to support single mothers and children living in poverty. One Saturday, Kendra visited her mother's grave with Ruby. She placed fresh flowers on the headstone and whispered, I understand now, Mom. You gave up everything for me. I promise I'll make it mean something. Ruby squeezed her hand. She'd be so proud of you, baby. Not because of the money, but because you stayed kind through everything. As they walked back to the car, Kendra noticed a young woman struggling with a broken-down vehicle in the cemetery parking lot. The woman looked frustrated and close to tears. Without hesitation, Kendra approached her. Do you need help? I can call a tow truck or give you a ride somewhere. The woman looked up, surprised that a stranger in expensive clothes would stop to help. I can't afford a tow truck, she admitted quietly. Kendra smiled. Don't worry about that. Let me make a call, because here's the truth that Preston and Sienna and everyone who mocked Kendra never understood. Wealth doesn't change who you are at your core. It only amplifies what was already there. Cruel people with money become more cruel. Kind people with money can change the world. Preston Hartford now worked at a car dealership, making commission on used vehicles. Sienna's influencer career had collapsed when her cruelty was exposed to her followers, but Kendra, she became one of the most respected CEOs in America, not because of her bank account, but because she never forgot what it felt like to be invisible, to be mocked, to be dismissed as worthless. Never judge someone by their clothes, their car, or their address. You have no idea what battles they're fighting or what destiny awaits them. Treat everyone with respect, not because of who they are, but because of who you are. Kindness costs nothing, but cruelty can cost you everything. The person you mock today might be signing your paycheck tomorrow, and when they have that power, they'll remember exactly how you treated them when they had nothing.